Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Cars.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Well, hello and welcome to MotorWeek's podcast number 29, and Happy New Year to everyone out there that's listening today. And joining me in Studio C is our writer, Shamit Choksi.
Hi, John.
And our road test producer, Brian Robinson.
Aloha.
And also associate producer, and no relation, fortunately for him, Ben Davis.
Hello.
Okay, we'll have our lightning round a little bit later, as we always do, and we'll take a dive into the MotorWeek mailbag as well. But first, we're going to start off with two of the most recent utility vehicles, and I use that particular term for a reason that we've tested lately on MotorWeek. The first one is the GX 460 from Lexus. This is the second generation GX, and this really is an SUV because it retains a truck-like separate body-on-frame construction, which is something that most new utility vehicles do not. And Ben Davis, you went to the preview and you had a chance to drive it more than any of the rest of us. What's your impression of the GX? Is it, out of step with the market that's all gone towards crossovers, or unique, or how do you feel about it?
I think it's just the right size to be in between the bigger utilities and the unibody utilities.
Now they're calling it midsize, but is it big for a midsize, you think?
It is. It's a little bigger than a normal midsize. I heard people refer to it as my size. That's they're trying to.
Boys, that sounds trendy.
Perfect size.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's based on another vehicle, right?
It's based on the 4Runner, yes, but you can no longer get a V8 in the 4Runner. So if you're looking for a V8 power in a towing, hauling situation, then this is your only bet.
And that's really what sets this apart. I mean, it has a tow rating of what?
6,500 pounds.
Now, that's a lot. So most crossovers can't even get close to that.
Right.
And the engine itself is new.
It's 4.6 liter this time around. It delivers 13% better fuel economy, has more power, more pound-feet of torque, and it's made it to the 6-speed transmission this time around.
So this is the Tundra powertrain.
That's what I believe, yeah.
Right. My impression was they've taken the styling and gotten a little more daring. I wouldn't say a lot, but the new Lexus styling philosophy is called L Finesse, and we've seen it on the LFA and some other things. There's a little bit, if you look dead on, you see that face in it a bit. I thought the interior was luxurious without being overdone. Yes. How did you feel, for carrying a family? Because this now has 3-seat standard, 3-row standard.
Correct, yeah. And it also has 10 airbags standard. Mm-hmm. So it has a side airbag for all 3 rows. Got knee bags up front. It's still 5,300 pounds, so it's not going to set the world on fire.
What's the price, like mid-50s? Or?
The base model starts at $52,845, and premium starts at $57,640. But you can easily, with all the bells and whistles, you can turn $70,000 pretty easy, I'd imagine.
You got off-road with this thing, didn't you?
That's the most impressive part of it. I mean, this thing is the real deal. It has a crawl control system that lets you choose from 5 different speeds in forward.
It's also a 2-speed high-low transfer case.
Yeah, and the crawl works in reverse, too, so there's no way you're going to get it stuck. And there's a system that controls your front and rear stabilizer bars, which in off-road situation, it'll disconnect them and allow you full articulation. And on uneven highway roads and stuff, it'll stiffen them up and take all your body roll out. I mean, when you think about it, for maybe a more cottage brand off-road vehicle, this vehicle is half the money you could spend on a
Range Rover or something.
I didn't want to call it a Range Rover,
true.
And all this stuff will work a year down the road too. All these systems will more than likely still help you out.
Just a lot of those off-road systems, I guess, are off the FJ Cruiser because they have that same.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. I mean, because that's based on the 4Runner too.
Yeah,
it's a wolf in soccer mom's clothing. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
So it looks like they've actually got what started out to be a crowded segment of the market, and they're now almost the only ones left in it.
I mean, it's pricey, but it's more, no, I wouldn't say practical, but it's more useful, if you've got to tow something or, really want to haul some stuff.
It's durable and it's ready for the task.
But it's a real truck. It's a real truck, fancied up. Okay, let's move along to something that goes in absolutely the opposite direction, and that's the second-generation Kia Sorento. The Sorento is now being made as we speak in a new plant in Georgia, so it's a U.S.-made Kia. The vehicle itself is called a compact, but it's actually rather large. It's about the size of a Chevrolet Equinox. With that said, Brian Robinson, you own the first-generation Sorento. What was your impression with the second generation? Plus, forward and back, how did you read it?
My wife's been driving one for about 5 years now. We got over 105,000 miles on it. And I'll be honest, I was a little nervous getting into it.
Why? Because you thought you'd have to buy her one?
No, first Korean vehicle, that I had bought. But we've had really good luck with it. No problems with 100,000 miles. And it's been a really great vehicle. Compare the new one, I wouldn't say I was blown away by it, but I don't know if it's a big step forward. The styling, I probably don't like as much. Obviously, the ride is much nicer being, unibody now.
And your first generation is, of course, body on frame.
Yeah, and it still tows 3,500 pounds at the V6, so you're not giving anything up there. The one we had here was a 4-cylinder, which, I'll give them credit for putting a 4-cylinder in there, just, for those that don't ever plan on hauling anything. But, it was adequate. Certainly not abundance of power there.
I had a chance when I drove it in Atlanta, and we went down to see the new plant, and it was pouring down rain, so we really didn't have a chance to wring it out very much. I thought the ride was impressive. I thought the engine was actually quieter. The 4-cylinder is quieter than I expected. I was comparing it to the Chevy Equinox, which is a vehicle I like a lot, and I thought it was actually a little quieter under heavy load than the Equinox. That surprised me. It doesn't get quite as good a fuel economy, but comes close. Nice interior, comfortable seats, but I understand when you took it to the track, the Sorento wasn't quite what you expected either.
Well, it was the 4-cylinder, so it wasn't setting the world on fire.
But what about the handling aspects?
Being a crossover now, it handled great. Stayed flat, not much roll.
Yeah. So you really did. You felt like that you felt they've done a competent job with it.
Yeah.
Anybody else got comments? Because we had one in here and everybody got a chance to drive
Ben
it.
and I talked to Ben as soon as he had gotten back from the track, and we usually have a quick conversation after those little drives, and he didn't seem too impressed with the way it handled, but I felt like it was on the road, it was sufficient. You take it out to the track and do our handling exercises around the cones, and
Ben,
it started to fall apart a little bit.
How did it react at the track?
It was a little numb through the steering wheel. There wasn't a whole lot of feel there, and
did it roll a lot?
Yeah, it felt to me like it rolled. I wasn't on the other side of the lens, but I haven't had a chance to look at the footage. But it did feel like it.
But behind the wheel. But did you feel like it was excessive, or just because it had a soft ride? Or
one thing that stands out in my mind is when we did the emergency lane change. It was a little scary for me there. Like Shamit said, on an everyday driving situation, it'll be fine. You're never going to encounter what we put it through on the cones.
Right. Well, these vehicles are not sports cars. I mean, they aren't.
It was quiet, too, on normal roads. I mean, you could get it up to highway speed 70, 75, 80, and doesn't really the cabin stays nice and
it gets up there pretty quick without you noticing it.
Yeah. That's what I found. I found it very competent. I thought the interior was nice. I liked it. Nothing about the vehicle jumped out and screamed at me and said, "This is the best I've ever driven in that class." But yet, it was totally competent. I thought it was seemed very well put together, and of course, based on your opinion, Brian Robinson, and also a lot of other people, Kia's quality has certainly come leaps and bounds in the recent years.
There were a few interior things. The rear seats fold a lot easier than they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Used to bottom up and the whole deal.
It's bigger. Did you feel like it was bigger? Because it's like 8-9 cubic feet larger than the previous.
It felt maybe a little bigger, but not that not that significant.
Quieter.
Definitely quieter.
So a good successor to a vehicle that Kia did very well with.
Yeah, and I think it's having the 4-cylinder optional. It's kind of the right vehicle at the right time, and it's still comparably equipped. $5-6 grand cheaper than all of its competitors.
It is a bargain. Okay, well, that's the Kia Sorento. I think we basically gave it a cautious thumbs up with a few caveats, and that's good. It's an interesting vehicle, and I hope Kia does well with it. Let's move on now to our lightning round. And this is where we have 2 minutes to debate a question or a statement, and then we hear the bell. The bell tolls from Michelle. And so here we go. A year ago, it looked like Americans were trending towards smaller cars, and gas, of course, was predicted to go up from the then around $4 a gallon to $5 or more. None of that has happened. So do you think Americans will ever become small car nation? Do you think America will ever become a small car nation, even if gas prices go up?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's always room for small cars, but, I mean, we're a big country, and we like to do a lot of cool things, and we like to work hard, and we need big vehicles for a lot of that. But there's plenty of room for both. I mean, not everyone needs a big vehicle, and I think some people that were using them as daily drivers realize they don't need that big of a vehicle. But, there's always going to be room for both.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, judging by the street that I live on as an example, there's maybe one or two out of 100 small cars on that whole street. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, finish. I thought you were done.
Like Brian said, everyday drivers that have long commutes are going to have smaller cars, and people with families are going to have maybe not as big as our parents had, but smaller.
Still family duty vehicles.
Small for a family vehicle, maybe.
I mean, I agree, except for the possibility that if it does actually ever go up to $5 or $6, that's enough to scare the heck out of people, I think, and maybe there will be a shift at that point. But for now,
well, that's what we said when it was 2 and it went to 3, and 3 it went to 4, and of course, fuel prices could be anything depending on the world situation. What got me is right about the time this was all happening. I had to go to New York, and I drove our Honda Fit long-term up there. So it's myself and a videographer, and we spent like an hour trying to get through the Holland Tunnel. And we were surrounded by big buses and big trucks, and everybody that was driving into the city in a light-duty vehicle had the biggest SUVs, either foreign or domestic brands that you could buy. And there were a couple of times when the buses, we were between an over-the-road truck and a bus, and I wasn't sure either one of them saw us, and they were merging into a single lane, and we were in the middle. And I'm thinking, there's no way that people are going to be, happy driving around in small cars when the disparity in size to what else is still on the road is going to get worse, not better. So the onus is on the automakers under the new, fuel economy guidelines to figure out a way to accomplish.
Our city's not really set up for it either. You can drive a Smart, but you're still going to park it in the garage probably, so you're paying for that, and you're not going to be able to take advantage of it being a small car.
It's going to take a long time for it to change, and I don't think just changing some laws in Washington is going to do it. I really don't. But it is interesting. It's we do right now a lot of small cars that were hot a year ago, like the Smart car. They're having a hard time selling them. Okay, Thanks, Michelle, for the bell. And let's move on now to our MotorWeek mailbag. Now, if you have a question that you'd like us to answer on one of our podcasts, you can visit our website at www.motorweek.org. You can submit your question. If chosen, you'll receive, drumroll please, a free MotorWeek T-shirt.
Highly coveted.
Highly coveted.
T-shirt.
And this question actually comes from close by. It comes from Garrett in Lanham, Maryland, and he asked the following. I'm sure you folks have been following the developments with the Progressive Automotive X Prize. It seems as though the focus of the competitors usually falls into one of 3 categories: weight reduction, aerodynamics, and fuel technologies. Which do you think will be the biggest factor for the winner, and why? Let me start this off.
Please.
I don't think either one of those things is going to be the tipper. It's going to take – this is the thing that everybody is ignoring about what's going on with the new fuel economy rules that kick in a couple of years. You're going to have to do all of this just to get close. You're going to have to make sure that the vehicle weighs as little as possible, which means more aluminum, more magnesium, more plastic, even more and much stronger lightweight steels. Aerodynamics, that's been in play with cars now for years. That's why we're always telling people if you damage all the underbody skirts on a car, you're screwing up the aerodynamics and going to ruin your fuel economy. And then fuel technologies, turbos, fuel injection, hybrids.
Center of everything, right?
All of that. So I think the winner of the X Prize is probably going to be something that's got all three of those things involved.
Yeah, it's a multi-pronged.
You can't, there is no silver bullet to getting higher fuel economy.
Yeah, I think weight reduction's got to be a big part of it. I mean, I think we're tapping out as far as aerodynamics, how much more we can do. And, I'm talking about real street cars and fuel technologies. We all know what's going on there. But, cars just keep getting heavier and heavier. And granted, a lot of it has to do with all the safety regulations we have now and all the comfort and convenience features. But just about every car, when they redo it, make a new generation, they add 100 or 200 more pounds to it.
And it's usually features like, DVD players and nav systems and this and that stuff that people want.
Technology is heavy.
So, as we keep increasing fuel economy, we keep adding more weight and negating it.
And somewhere that has to turn around.
Yeah.
And yes, you can get that by making smaller vehicles, and no doubt the winner of the X Prize will probably be a small vehicle, and it'll probably be very aerodynamic. But you've got to make a street vehicle big enough for people to get into it and carry all their belongings. It's just like we were talking with the previous lightning round question. So it's the answer, Garrett, is it's going to take all of the above and then probably a lot more imagination than we've seen up to now.
Yeah, Garrett.
Lots of lab jackets on that one.
Very good question, and one that speaks a lot to the future. Once again, if you've got a question for us on the podcast, go to our website, motorweek.org, submit it, and we hope to have it for you on a future podcast. And that wraps up today's podcast number 28 for MotorWeek. Thank you very much for listening. Be sure to catch MotorWeek on your local public television stations. I'd like to thank audio engineer Jim Bigwood, our producer, podcast creator, Bob Mixter, and, of course, our producer extraordinaire, the lady with the bell, Michelle Parker, who makes all of this possible. And for all of us at MotorWeek, we'll be here next time on our next MotorWeek podcast.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Cars.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.